fine due to several reasons, but there was, as you said, the internal colonization was happening, like when Andhra entrepreneurs used to come and plant the tobacco crops and all these things. That was the entire process of colonization, and those colonizers have gone back, but the evidence is with the Ramoji Film City. Why there was no emphasis on the land distribution after you became the chairman? That was my question. And the second thing, how do we understand various representatives of socio-political organizations like Swami Gaud, Srinivas Gaud, Pidamarchi Ravi becoming puppets of TRS party and government after the formation of the government, after the formation of the statehood? Because these guys, these were the representatives, these were the individuals who were part of the who were part of various JACs, and they used all these forums, especially JACs, to become something like a leader in the entire Telangana movement. And also one more clarity about the landlords coming, leaving the villages. Was it due to this? You said that due to the land reforms, they realized that they could not own the land anymore. They have started selling this land. But the reality, even in my village also, is that it was, as Venkatesh sir pointed out that it was due to the Naxalite movement. It was the Naxalite force which brutalized them for all the offences, atrocities committed against the common people. And they have left the villages. And despite leaving the villages, they have kept their people there, especially people from various middle classes, like middle class or something like OBC communities, Kapus and Gaudus and Yadavs as their representatives at the village level. That's how the land has been in the hands of the landlords. And after the formation of Telangana, especially with KCR becoming the chief minister, all the Velamas and Reddys are coming back to the villages, and they are trying to renovate all their gadis that existed in the past. So how do you reflect on this? Thank you.
Your views on the formation of districts in Telangana?
Good evening, sir. Sir, the present ruling party, TRS party, is making a caste-based patronization. So there was debate during Telangana movement, then when Telangana movement was on, that whether Telangana should be a democratic Telangana, or social justice Telangana, or just a territorial Telangana. The present civil society, but after the formation, KCR sidelining all these things, and he says that then we will make Bangaru Telangana, Golden Telangana. So in this debate, and in the very strategic policies of the TRS patronizing the the caste leaders, where does this civil society stands? In which stream? In which larger ideological things?
Sir, thank you for enlightening Sajan for making this critical analysis of Telangana movement. I would like to ask a few questions. Like you have rightly pointed out about the political autonomy, but what about the policies? Does the recent government initiated any kind of policy to look into the health, education, irrigation, or plethora of sectors? Is there any new policy? Because earlier when this Vice Rajsekhar Reddy was there, Arogya Shri Yojana was there. So it was looking into the different marginal sections or all those things. But is there any new policy to look into the health issues or educational policies or irrigation? And sir, do you initiate any kind of periodic debate among the JSCs? I mean to say that periodic debate with regard to various issues of socio-economic, cultural issues of Telangana. And most of this, I am not from Telangana, but I was endorsing my consent for the Telangana movement. But I just wanted to know, whenever most of the Telangana students, whenever we have after post-dinner talk, they say that Telangana was sitting on the every question. Telangana came for whom? They have been seriously debating. It was one of my batchmates also there. ఏంటి అన్న తెలంగాణ వచ్చింది ఉద్యోగం లేదు ఏంటి లేదు. That means the way they were trying to get some sort of anger, that's what I am trying to say. And one day I was visiting in an auto. One Muslim auto driver, he was telling that in Hindi, Telangana ke kya hua bhai, garib ki pet mein la. So the way they were trying to say the nomenclature they were using, a powerful nomenclature, how do you reflect being a chairman of JSC? And what kind of policy initiative or trajectory you want to propose for the future generation? And one more point I would like to know, sir, there are various regional movements. As I am from Odisha, in Odisha also there is a Kausal movement, which the same kind of condition of that Western Odisha. They talk about their language deprivation. They talk about their deprivation in terms of education, health, and infrastructure, all those things. So, what kind of thing they should learn from the JSC? Should you encourage for the more regional movement in India, or should you say that regional movement has some sort of crisis? Whatever the state we are having, let's stay with that, or what could be your position? Should you encourage for more regional movement, or should you say that no, let's wait and watch? What could be your reflections? Thank you.
I have not said that the landlords left because of the land reforms. I only said that a series of factors led to intensify the conflict within the village, of which land reform program, 20-point program, they played their own role as catalyst for change. The land reform program never resulted in the acquisition of land from landlords, but it acted as put some kind of a pressure on the landlords to give up some of their holdings, which they did basically through selling land. But more than that, it's the government has distributed the government land. So everyone who bought a patch of land, they started asserting their autonomy. And in this particular conflict, it's the Naxalites who played a major role in resolving this conflict. Obviously, this brought major changes in the village. You know, many villages that we went round, people would say, Dorala Vittanam Poi, that their hegemony is wiped out. So this is not something, you know, that one would create, but this is something that in many villages people have narrated to us. We visited about 100 villages, talked to people extensively, a cross section of them, and this is the conclusion that we arrived at after this long discussion. So I would say, you know, for a variety of reasons. Number one, the earlier agrarian economy cannot be revived because the caste-based division of labor has disappeared. You cannot extract free labor, which was an essential condition for the agricultural system that survived in Telangana till the 90s. That's one. Number two, that the kind of social control they acquired is not possible anymore. And I don't think, you know, these new leaders that emerge, you know, they are henchmen of the landlord. No. It's because of this local reservation, some of them have emerged as leaders. But this transformation, what kind of transformation it results in? Of course, the new leadership has emerged and people from hitherto completely neglected communities, we see the leadership. It doesn't mean, everything will change. This is where I am extremely careful and extremely guarded. I am only saying that one principal contradiction, in the context of the liberalization, is to resolve that important contradiction. We had large number of discussions about it, and finally we came to the conclusion. It's not as if one jumps to this conclusion all of a sudden. There were series of agitations starting from 1996 onwards against the liberalization policies, meetings, seminars, campaigns, movements, agitation against the liberalization policy. At that point of time, it was such an important burden on the Telangana people. Somehow you must overcome that so that you can start afresh your own journey for a better society, where everyone can live with self-respect. So that was the starting point, an important condition, an important contradiction needs to be addressed. It's not the same Telangana that we are now talking about. It was completely different. Going to a village, organizing people, holding a meeting was next to impossible. And talking about these changes in the agricultural policies was extremely difficult. So a contradiction emerged, and after witnessing so many suicides and so many upsurges in the villages, then we finally thought, this is the basic tension and it needs to be addressed. And people rallied around it. It's out of their own life experience. In 96 to 2001, there were a number of meetings. And in these meetings, this issue came up for discussion. And one would say, unless and until Telangana is a free issue, it is not possible to mobilize people. So every issue is articulated through this Telangana prism. And that becomes the mass movement, results in the transformation of the Telangana agitation into a mass movement. And the person who participates in this movement is not the same old person. He is transformed into a conscious, autonomous individual who will not tolerate any policy that is imposed by the government. It is not so easy. They can resist this, they can be told, fight against it. It is possible. And therefore to say that, the old economy will revive is a cliche, I would say, to use a very, a word. But then they may go back. But I would say there are other forms in which land concentration is taking place. The other forms, the transformation of land into various farmhouses in and around Hyderabad. That's a major issue. And then the second important issue that has emerged after the agrarian transformation in the Telangana villages. And that is the rise of a small and medium and marginal farmer. 90% of them belong to this category and they are hugely indebted. And an average each farmer has, according to NSS statistics, about 93,000 debt. And that's a debt burden that all of them are carrying. Now these are not, they are not able to carry agriculture according to their own, to fulfill their own interest and to fulfill their own needs. There is an intermediary between the land and the small farmer. This intermediary is the trader, is the dealer, is the, the financier, the money lender and the government agency. So between the land and the owner, there is an intermediate. And as Chiapas and others would say that the next phase of land reforms must also address this issue, eliminate them so that they can have full-fledged control over the land, over the agriculture. That is very important. They don't have control over the agrarian processes. All of them are dictated by the agencies extraneous to the village. And this is a new form of exploitation that is emerging in the village. Fighting against these forms of exploitation is something very important and calls for an agricultural policy from the government that would strengthen the small and medium farmer. At a time when the rich farmer was emerging, the state played an active role, intervened in the agricultural sector, supported them, played a major role in their economic growth. But now the state is not willing to do that. So what we need is an interventionist state that would perhaps create cooperatives, that would encourage farmers to use the local resources to sustain their agriculture, that would perhaps also promote the non-farm economic activities within the village so that their incomes can be increased, that would also provide money required for the agricultural activity. So all these alternative institutional arrangements must be recreated. That's another phase of this struggle. At one point of time, in the context of liberalization, when these commercial agriculture, what you call the company-based agriculture was emerging, that was the first threat. Now the important thing is to reorganize the agriculture in such a manner that the farmers will have control over their land. Otherwise, they root their own land. I would say rather, these are the questions that were articulated in the Telangana movement. And the role of Jack and role of the other non-party forums is to continue this struggle. Continue this struggle. And that's where, many groups joined this movement. Not all of them would travel in this agitation, any further. It calls for a democratic awareness of, understanding of the Telangana movement. And that's the reason why one should remember the kind of debate that took place in Telangana movement in 2001 when TRS was formed. Earlier when Indira Reddy formed a party, the same debate was initiated. People said, what part you really want to achieve Telangana. And then I would say that, the Telangana agitation, at that point of time, people insisted must result in democratic transformation. Everyone agreed to that. And that is an inherent now demand of the Telangana movement. That's why we are asking for a development strategy that would strengthen transform the society, that would, allow people to live with dignity and self-respect. That is what we are asking for. I am saying that people do have the necessary strength to carry on this struggle. And that's where the role of the non-party groups that played an active role for Telangana, they must continue their activity so that these people can articulate their concerns and achieve their demands in the near future. So that is the next phase of the struggle. So we have crossed an important situation, and therefore we always feel as if that never existed. That kind of an empirical position always results in problems. There is a history behind this position. We traveled that. That doesn't mean we have reached the final point. This creates conditions for further transformation of the Telangana society. In that further transformation, what should be the role of non-party forum? These JSC should continue, take up these issues and carry forward the banner of the Telangana agitation. Unfinished task of the Telangana agitation. That's how I would look at it. And therefore, in my opinion, we have seen, bad days and crossed it, and some more changes are required. And whatever we have gained so far, it gives us the necessary strength to face this situation, to transform this situation, to be able to, create something new, better than what we are seeing today. That's how I would look at it. And therefore, I would say that, it is not so easy for anyone to go back and establish, turn the clock back and establish the previous economic order. It is not so easy at all. On the contrary, what is worrisome is that the contractor class, the corporate hegemony, perhaps may continue in different form. That is my worry. And therefore, to be vigilant against this corporate class and the contractor class should be the major concern of the present phase of the movement. So, we have been always asking, strengthen the public sector, eradicate the corporate sector, and regulate the private sector established by the unemployed youth. This is the policy that we have been advocating and continue to campaign for this policy. And therefore, this movement per statehood, if someone ever thought that immediately everything would change, I think, that is a wrong understanding. We just thought, this would give some relief and gives the necessary strength to carry forward the struggle for a social transformation. That's how we looked at it. And therefore, we were very clear that, JSCs must continue and carry forward this struggle. The question arises, how does this translate into a policy? Which parties would really carry forward this task? How do you influence the state in this particular context? That, I think, is a major question that everyone is asking within Telangana. Then I would say the debates, all decisions within JSC were taken in the extended steering committee. The extended steering committee consisted of representatives from the district and then the representatives from various organizations. Invariably, it is a day-long session where every issue is debated and basic policies are decided in the extended steering committee, which are implemented by the steering committee consisting of representatives from various groups, where district members are not involved in. And before coming to a conclusion in the extended steering committee, elaborate discussions would take place at the state level and also at the district level. So this was, how the decisions were taken in JSC. It was a democratic organization. Sometimes political leaders would be impatient. They would say, how long you discuss this issue? It is not necessary to talk to everyone. As a leader, you should announce program. So, but then that tradition was not encouraged at all. All decisions were taken after an elaborate democratic discussion. I would say regional identities is a question that has to be debated in Indian politics. Regional identities cannot be completely ignored. During the British days, the kind of policies they followed, because some regions were under the control of the princes, and some regions were under the British control, and some were completely excluded even from British administration. Unevenness was created. Britishers were more interested in areas with economic potentiality. Therefore, those are the areas where they created modern infrastructure, and hence those were the areas where even the national movement was completely confined itself only to those regions. Other regions are completely neglected, and the inadvertently resulted in inequalities, regional imbalances. And the issue of regional imbalances needs to be addressed very seriously. One and the only person who debated this seriously during the freedom struggle was Ambedkar. He talked elaborately about these regional issues, the issue of regional identity, and always insisted that there should be smaller states so that there would be a parity between north and south, and also insisted that there would be greater democracy. He was not suggesting that everything would transform completely, but in order to work for democracy, he said smaller states are better places. So those regional identities are never taken into consideration. Historians are now paying attention to this issue, and even in political science, these identities are now taken up for discussion. For a long period, people thought a discussion on regional identities is a very bad thing, just as a discussion on caste was never permitted. So slowly people started debating this, and particularly after 1990s, with the rise of OBCs and SCs in Indian politics, we see regional identity has a new meaning altogether. And political scientists have been arguing that regional demands for regional autonomy articulate these concerns in the post-90s. So these are, I think, policies for change. That's why I would say that we must continue this effort. Few questions that we all are facing, and because this is a group that can research further, I would place them before you for your consideration. We are facing this question that we must continue our effort, and unless and until the civil society, the non-party forum becomes vibrant, politicians will never change, politics will never change. So this is one opinion that is quite widespread. Secondly, people argue if these non-party forums are active, how is this translated, how is this gets translated into politics? What is the conveyor between these forums and the state? That is the second question that we have always been asking ourselves. Should there be a political party different from the other political parties so that these agitations can find an appropriate political expression is one question that is widely debated. Similarly, the um, the activities at the level of the civil society, what impact will they have in the long run both on the economy and politics? This is also a question that we have been asking ourselves. We work very active, we are very active, we work and in the realm of society, and we are outside the political parties, outside the political institutions. So how does our activity influence the politics? Does it really change politics, the terms of discourse in politics, the agenda in politics? Is a question that everyone asks. We only give an answer that in Telangana it happened, so maybe with some hope we should continue this effort, is what we always been answering. Then um, finally, people think that because some of us are because of our work in the civil society, if an organization gets some recognition, should that become a political party, or should it continue outside the political realm? So these are the questions that people always ask. People always tell you that you should be in politics. It's a very interesting question. They also simultaneously tell you that you must fight for people's rights, must remain outside. You can't be doing both the things simultaneously. So there is a duality in this argument. This duality arises because people think, what we do must also find a reflection in the government policy. How does that happen if we remain outside? So there is a limit within which these groups operate. How do they, by confining to these limits, influence the state and its policies is a question that needs to be addressed. In India, the context in which these non-party forums become so influential only after 1970s, is it because there is some kind of a dissatisfaction with the government, with the state, or is it because of the inequalities? Why is it that we see the rise of these groups after 1970s? What social forces really supported them? And how did they negotiate with political parties so far? I think these are the questions that are never answered appropriately. Because as a civil rights activist, some of these questions we also faced. And we tried to negotiate with some of them, not with to our satisfaction. But now I can say that we are more aware of these limits, but at the same time answer some of these questions to our satisfaction.
I think everything that begins must come to an end. Tea is waiting outside for all of us, and getting cold. I will not give any further remark except that I'd like to place my appreciation of Udan for refusing to be part of the state power. And it was on the Bajaj knocking on his door that he could have become minister right now. He is sitting with us for a dialogue on the improvement of Telangana. Therefore, his commitment to struggle has not stopped ever, and he will remain as a person very firmly rooted, firmly organic to people's organizations. And I know him from the human rights movement. We were part of PCLC for a long period of time, long back. Therefore, his commitment is absolutely undeniable. With this remark, I'd like to invite Professor Ramram to offer a vote of thanks, and we'll close the session.
On behalf of the department and on behalf of the Center for Advanced Studies, we immensely thank Professor Kodan for agreeing and delivering a fantastic lecture on various aspects of the Telangana movement. We are particularly happy as alumni like Shaji and we, particularly because Kodan has documented implemented constitution for the University of Hyderabad's Students Union, and right now they and his singular contribution, like sitting for 6 days and nights to arrive at a consensus, he continued into Telangana movement also, and then he could keep the entire Telangana movement peaceful and free from the police interference. And when he was once arrested, I was frantically searching for friends how to reach him. He said that they are not going to touch me, don't worry. But his commitment to the cause of politics is something that the international audience, recently he visited 2-3 universities in US, invited him for a talk over there, and I was closely following that. So there are 2 students of our department who rose to the international fame, Professor Kodan, for organizing a most peaceful democratic transition of formation of Telangana, and Syed Akbaruddin, now the permanent secretary, to the UN from the Indian government there, are outstanding contributions of the department. As alumni, I am very proud and I'm happy to be there. Yet, I thank everybody who responded to our invitation, particularly the students, and Arun for taking particular interest to see that this talk is organized before 30th, because Arun is passing through another phase of challenges. Thank you very much.